Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kim Coble. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and it's another wonderful Friday Digest. We're excited to spend the next half hour with you. So thank you for joining us. We do these events for you. So we want to make sure we're giving you the information you need and getting you the resources you need and helping you feel confident in being an advocate for the environment and for Maryland. So keep us posted on what information and what you'd like us to feature in the next Friday Digest. We really want to be responsive to your needs. So keep us informed. At the end of this event, there will be a short 5-question survey that we hope you fill out, and you can put your ideas for topics in there. So please take a moment to do that. As we mentioned in the chat, add your name and where you're from. And then throughout the conversation, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end of the conversation today. I'm particularly excited about today because we are featuring Maryland LCV's signature report. And before we jump into that, I want to introduce Kristen Harbison, our director of our political director, who oversees the data and construction of this report, and we'll jump into the details there. But our 2023 scorecard we've been putting out the scorecard for about 40 years, believe it or not, and it provides us an opportunity to really have transparency in the election and vote, the General Assembly and voting process during the legislative process. So the idea is to shine a light on exactly who voted for what bills and how they did overall. So it's truly a compilation of data. We don't interpret anything. We don't use any judgment calls. It is data reporting. But it's really critical data, especially if you want to be an informed and engaged voter. So we it also this year we are focusing a lot of the report on our environmental priorities, and Kristen's going to talk about how we categorize the bills that we summarize on the votes. So and before I turn it over to her, I want to be sure we acknowledge the great success of the Maryland General Assembly, Governor Wes Moore, and leadership for what we deemed as a really successful General Assembly on behalf of the environment. Before we get in there, let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about why we create the scorecard. And as I said, this is to give you information. So the idea is that find out who represents you in the Senate and the House, check their votes on specific bills, check their lifetime score. We'll go through all of this for you, and that lets you then hold them accountable, right? That's the idea here is Maryland LCV works really hard with you to get good conservation people elected. Once they're elected, we want them to do good conservation voting, and we hold them accountable, both with positive accountability as well as negative. And so this is why it's important for you to know how your legislators do. And the other thing is to help educate legislators. We use this tool throughout the General Assembly, the 3 months of legislative session, to let them know what bills what our priority bills are, what we're watching, how we hope they're voting on things, and really how are we developing a sustainable future for Maryland in this legislative process. So it's really an education tool all across the board, and has been successful. We've gotten some great feedback from legislators about wanting to get their score high, taking great pride in being 100%er. And also, when that doesn't occur, it helps them to be aware that we're watching. And so the next year they can make improvements. So with that, I'm going to, as I said, introduce Kristen, our political director, and pretty much the brains behind the report. And she's going to go through this year's report, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I hope you enjoy it. Kristen?
Well, thanks, Kim, and thanks everybody for being here. This is the scorecard is one of the things that Maryland League of Conservation Voters is most known for, and I just want to say that none of this would be possible without you, and the participation of advocates from around the state engaging with the General Assembly to pass this important legislation. It's also not possible without our partners. Maryland, this document comes out under the brand of Maryland League of Conservation Voters. It is our scorecard, but it's not just our priorities. We try to look at what the whole story of the session from an environmental perspective, including the priorities of our partners. So this is something that we do in partnership with and informed by our partner organizations. So, and broadly speaking, I'm just going to go quickly through a little bit about how we group them and some of the high points of the report. So we break it down into really four categories: climate and energy policy, environmental justice, transportation, land and water conservation. And obviously, some of these bills will be hit in multiple categories, but this is how we generally group them. So first up is climate and energy policy. We have impressive and important state goals, including to ultimately be fueled by 100% clean and renewable energy. This is about the environment. It's also about our economy and public health. So we made important strides this year. We made the community solar pilot program permanent. That was one of our signature issues this year, one of the environmental community priorities this year, and that passed. We also made an important bill around to engage and improve and expand our offshore wind energy goals. We made strides in sustainable building. We did not get everything, though, as is often the case. There was the Empower bill, which deals with energy efficiency and reforming that important program. Made it through one chamber. It didn't make it through the others. And we expect that to come back next year and hopefully with a better outcome, final outcome of it passing both chambers. Moving on to environmental justice, everyone in Maryland deserves clean air, unpolluted lands, safe water, no matter who you are and where you live. And your public health and your environmental engagement changes depending on your zip code, and we're trying to rectify that and make sure that that everybody gets clean air and water. So working on environmental justice, there was a lot of progress here. We passed legislation. Actually, it was the second year that the transit equity bill, looking at how decisions are made and making sure that equity is considered in transit choices from our agencies. That passed. It actually passed last year too. It passed again this year, and this time went into law. Green space equity recognizes that everybody deserves public space, open space, and elections are important. You can't have equitable acts unless you have good elections. And so we do look at election law and making sure that our elections are safe, fair, and dynamic, and everybody is able to participate. Moving on to transportation, both transportation and land and water conservation were banner years. We want a Maryland where transportation is interconnected and free of emissions, about cleaner air, innovation, and creating job opportunities. We've made a lot of progress in the last several years. This year was important, especially for emissions around clean trucks and clean cars. The Clean Trucks and Clean Trucks Act sets the goal for making sure that medium and heavy duty trucks being sold in Maryland are moving towards electric. On top of that, we need to make sure that the industry is supported with incentives to help make that possible. So the Governor's Energy and Transportation Act passed. Both of these passed into law, and we were able to give a top grade for our transportation sector, for transportation legislation this year. Land and water conservation, again, in addition to the Green Space Equity Act that I mentioned before, we have some of the most amazing natural gems in Maryland, and they deserve our protection. And investing in conservation ensures that Maryland thrives for generations to come. We had 3 landmark bills this year that passed to make sure that would include that passed, including the Maryland the Beautiful, which sets goals for 40% of our state lands protected by the year 2040. The Forest Conservation Act was an extraordinary piece of legislation that helps to make sure that we have more forests, not less, and helps to fix a law that had been that was not working on forest protection. And that passed. It was at the capstone of a 7-year effort, at least 7 years. And then we dealt with PFAS and pesticides and making sure that we're looking at that really critical issue that affects both our public health and our water. We were pleased with our huge wins. We do know that there's more work to come. Even in the places where they got top grades, we know that there's more work to be done. Community Solar Power Act, Clean Trucks Act were enormous victories, but we know there's more coming up. So moving into the score part of the scorecard, there's a lot of data. And one of the things we look at is not only how every single member of the General Assembly gets a grade, an individual grade 0 to 100, depending on how they voted on the issues that we've identified as important. Within that, we want to make sure that we're identifying who are the real leaders, who sponsored this legislation, who drove the policy forward. So we have 11 green champions, which really elevate who the true leaders of the General Assembly this year were, and we are thrilled and grateful for all of them and look forward to working with them moving forward. We choose what bills are we choose what bills are scored, but again, this is a work of the community. So we look for you for feedback on what we're doing and what scores we're working on. But fundamentally, this scorecard is about transparency and accountability. It lets you ask questions of your legislator, thanking them for good work, thanking them for the good votes that they took, but also asking them questions. You're like, why didn't you vote for that bill? Why weren't you there for that vote? And let them talk to you. This is a communication tool to help you continue to engage with the General Assembly and your elected officials, because they can't do their work without your input. And I think, that's the general overview. So I'll turn it back over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you all for joining. We're hoping you can, again, use this tool, and we're happy to help walk you through it. There's a QR code on the screen right now, so you can download it there. We have a couple hard copies. If you would prefer us to mail one, we can do that to you as well. But let me start with where you finished, Kristen, because there's some pretty dense charts in the document where we list the legislator, their district, the 2023 score, their lifetime score, and then how they did on the specific bills that you mentioned. And for each legislator, right? So tell me a little bit about how to read this chart. So if I'm in District 33B, right? So how do I find my legislator? Number one, how do I find out how they voted? And then thirdly, what should I do?
Sure. So, and I think that we'll have a link to a website where you can look up your legislator. We'll go into the chat. So what you need to do is you'll put in your address, and it will come up, and it will help you identify who represents you at every level of government. Once you do that, once you find out who your senator is and your delegates are, and in 33B, you've got, that's a sub-district, so you've got one delegate and one senator. You figure out where you look up who it is, and then we've listed them in alphabetical order by chamber. So the senators are listed alphabetically by last name. And then you look up and you see where they are. One of the things is to see also about the lifetime scores, you can see the whole body of work. So they may have had a really good grade this year, but have they always? And are they consistently good? Or maybe they had an off year. And that's again another data point for you. And so look it up by find out who your legislators are, and then look it up by last name in this you're right, it's a very dense grid. But we do try to make it easy for you to see and understand what it is. We give descriptions of each of the bills and why they were important and why we mark them. The other thing I didn't mention is that in addition to the individual legislator scores, we also grade the chambers. And that's something we actually started doing in 2020.
The chamber being the House.
The chambers being the House
Senate.
and the Senate. Yeah, sorry. So, and you can see that at the top of each of the sections of the different four topics we have. Did a bill pass the House? Did a bill pass the Senate? And did it pass the General Assembly? Did it go to the governor's desk? We started doing that in 2020 because one of the things we kept hitting up against is we can only grade what's scored, what they voted on. And if sometimes they choose not to vote, a bill won't even come up for a vote. And then how do we have accountability there? So really the chamber scores, the House, whether it passes the House, whether it passes the Senate, helps to see the whole story of the session and where progress has been made. That's the chamber scores are where we're able to show bills that didn't even get any votes that may not have, that may have been important that we know we're going to look at. One of the big ones for this in that instance was an environmental justice bill, the Climate and Equity Act. We actually made progress on that one that year. It received one vote in one committee, but it didn't get to the floor. It didn't get to the full House because of, ran out of time. There were some negotiations, but we made progress, but it didn't receive the full vote. That shows where that is. And there are a lot of pieces underneath it. And we tried to show in the description of the bills a little bit more context about what they should be looking at.
Yeah, I think the report has gotten more, provided more information all the way around. Every year we're trying to perfect it and simplify it. So to our audience, please let us know if that's working, if there's more ways we can be helpful to get you information or explain something. But let me ask you this, Kristen, is as we said, we've been doing this for 40 years, right? And have changed a little bit, but the idea here is we let citizens know how their elected officials are voting. Do you think it's an effective tool? And if the answer, hopefully, is yes, but why? I mean, why? How has it changed a legislator's actions and going forward?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I do think it's a valuable tool. It's why we continue to do it year after year. It's a lot of work, and we wouldn't put the time and effort into doing it if it wasn't important, if it wasn't a tool that voters could use, if voters didn't use it to talk to their legislators, and if the legislators didn't use it as well. It absolutely matters to legislators what their score is. They are able to talk about it to their members, to show their environmental bona fides when in districts where that's important. They care a lot about what their score is. They use it, but again, it's a matter of it's how voters use it to talk to their legislators. It's a way of having a conversation, and the more our elected officials hear from us about what we care about, they make decisions based on what they hear from their constituents. So if constituents say, "Hey, I looked at this scorecard, and why didn't you vote that way? Why? What was up with this?" Because this is something that I feel strongly about. One of the things we like to make sure people understand is that your story. You are the only one who can tell your story and why something is important to you. And they need to hear that. So if you look at the scorecard and you say, delegate so-and-so didn't vote the way I wanted them to, you can talk to them, you can ask them, and then they know that their constituents know that it's important to them, and it does change their minds.
Right.
And it's a way for us, and we work in elections too. So in addition to the year to year, over the course of any different given session, we want this to be something that people use when they go to the polling place as well.
Yeah,
to see it
that's a great.
as a way for them to make decisions about whether we are conservation voters.
Mhm,
This is something
mhm,
we care a lot about. We
mhm.
will vote for people who share our values.
No, that's a
And
great point.
that is one of the main reasons
Yeah.
we do this tool is it's part of our elections accountability as well as our annual accountability.
Right. And I'm going to come back to that, but let me hit one of the questions that came in about having this available on a sortable Excel sheet, which we respect a lot. We are in the process of launching an interactive digital scorecard that where you can select your district and sort and find out exactly how to do it. We don't have that up yet, but we will be getting it up. So thank you for that question. And I think that'll help a lot as well. Um, so let me go back to your point, Chris. And one of the fun facts that we've uh, looked at this year was in 2022, we had the statewide elections, right? We had all the legislators that were up, the Senate, the House, all the statewide, the governor, attorney general, comptroller. And thanks to all of us, we got great people elected. And Maryland LCV endorsed a number of folks, 93% of which got elected. So we're very proud of that. So this scorecard, we looked at, all right, how did our endorsed candidates do? Did the idea is to get good conservation people in office so that they then make good conservation policy decisions. And we're really proud to say that 100% of the House endorsed folks got 100%. So awesome outcome on that front. And 96.5% of the Senate. There was one endorsed candidate that didn't vote our way, but or didn't get 100%. Scored pretty good, but not 100%. So that's identified in there as well. But we're really proud of, real the I don't know if this is the right analogy or not, but the dominoes that we work on are affecting the next domino and affecting the next one. So we're really happy about that. So with that backdrop, Kristen, I wanted to have you talk a little bit about how we inform legislators during the session, communicate with them our priorities, how we want them to vote. In other words, this isn't a surprise test at the end of the session,
No.
right? This is an ongoing 3-month process for us. So describe a little bit of that background work we do.
No, this is not a surprise test. Every legislator is given very clear warning about what we are looking at. We are very clear that and it's true. We don't know what we're going to score until until after session's over and we look
Right.
at everything that happened. That being said, we don't score anything where we have not communicated very clearly that we are watching the score. We're watching a bill. We've identified it as important. This is the position, the environmental vote is yay or nay, or sometimes yay with amendments. And we are and that it's scoreable, that we might score this. We communicate through this in a couple different ways, one of which is through our hot list, which we send out every week to every legislator. That identifies the bill that we're tracking and our positions on it and gives context about what the bill does, the climate impact, the equity considerations around it, where it is, who the sponsors are, all the basic information that legislators need to make decisions. We also communicate by email to the legislators if something is moving, if something has been voted out that isn't on the hot list, if we want to say, you're going to be able to vote on this bill when it comes to the floor. This is important and here's why. And this is our vote. This is the right vote on this bill. Once we do that, and once we say that a bill is scoreable, any vote moving forward can be used for scoring, including committee votes, including floor votes, including amendment votes, including concurrence votes, which is when a bill has passed over one and it has to come back over, and the chamber has to look at it again. So any vote moving forward, we can score. And so we are very clear about what we're doing. Now, that's how we communicate to legislators, is through the hot list. And that is something that we publish on our website. But for you, we also have our Conservation Weekly, which digests this, which puts it in a digest form in a way that is less written for legislators and actually written for people who are not living in the world of legislative brain like I do, in the course of session. And because it is not necessarily what legislators are looking for in the actual language that they're looking at. It's not necessarily sensible to other people outside of this world. So we do try to communicate with you through our Conservation Weekly or our hot list. You could get it too. And then the hot list to the legislators every week.
Yeah, and I think an important point I want to really emphasize here is that, the scorecard looks at 10 different bills, and that's what we score. We have many priorities for the legislators. And, some make it, some don't, some get amended, etc. We do not say okay, here's the 10 that we're going to be scoring, or this will be scored, this won't be scored. We never say that. We simply say these are our priorities that could be scored. So the whole platform is a priority for them, and we communicate that way. After the session, we then decide with our partners on the priorities. So I just want to emphasize that as well. So anything we haven't touched on, Kristen, that you want to mention?
No, I think that this is, I hope that people will use this scorecard. I think that we put a lot of love into it to make sure that it gives you the information that you need to communicate with your legislators. And I have
a follow-up question on that. So here it is, November, right? They're not in session. They're maybe getting ready for the holidays or looking at 2024. But the scorecard just came out. Is this a good time for people to say, dear Senator so-and-so, I got Maryland LCV scorecard and thank you, or not? I mean,
yes.
Do you have to do it just during the session?
No. Absolutely. This is a great time for you to reach out and thank them. If your senators or your delegates got 100% or voted right on a bill you care about, definitely thank them. Thank them. This
At any time. Okay.
Yes, anytime. Because they are, yes, we have a part-time legislature. Yes, they only meet for 90 days from January to April, but they're legislators all year long, and they want to hear from you all year round. And them getting positive accountability, them hearing from you, thank you for being a strong conservation voter, encourages them to continue to pay attention to what we're telling them, so that they can continue to get a good score. That's how this works. We give you the tool for you to communicate, for them to know that it's important to you. You are the voices that they want to hear from.
And I think too that, frankly, you'll probably get they'll listen a little bit more carefully in November because they're not bombarded with session things. So it's actually a very effective time to communicate.
Absolutely.
So let me shift gears, because we got one more minute. This time just zooms by for us, but I wanted to let you know that on December 13th, we are holding a town hall for our members and interested people here in Annapolis from 4 to 6 p.m. And I believe we have a slide with the exact location of it. Please come. We're going to be talking about our new strategic plan. We're going to be talking about the 2024. There we go. Thank you. At the Wiley Bates Legacy Center. This will be, we're sending out invitations as well. So we'll make sure everybody on this call gets one with the exact address and whatnot. It is in Annapolis, 4 to 6, December 13th. We'll talk about our 2024 session. We're also going to talk about our new strategic plan that will guide us for the next 3 years, and get some feedback from you. So we will also be sharing it online, so you can join virtually as well. So thanks for that question. So with that, it is 12:30. We're at the end of another Friday Digest. I wish everybody a great weekend. It's a beautiful afternoon. Please spend some time outside, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.